Alright, today we're going to learn to use the Ordinate Dimensioning tool to dimension a part. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go to create a drawing from design. I'm going to make sure I have my size B sheet selected. I'll go ahead and click OK. Once I have that sheet open, we'll start placing views. I'm going to change the scale to 1. I'm going to select to place a top view first. Click OK. From there, I'll project the front view, and from the front view, I will go ahead and project the isometric view. I'm going to make sure the isometric view is shaded. Now we can zoom in and start working on dimensioning of our part. First thing I'm going to do, just like I would on any drawing I was going to make, I'm going to put the center marks in for the holes. So I'll go ahead and place those center marks. Then we can start using the Ordinate Dimensioning tool. So this is a good tool to use when you have many dimensions and many dimensions to place in the same dimension of the part. And so in this case we have several width dimensions and we have several depth dimensions to place. So we have to locate the holes and we have to locate the starting and stopping points for the pocket. And so this is a good tool to use for that. So under dimension, I'm going to go ahead and click Ordinate Dimensioning. First thing you do when you're using this tool is you define a 0 point. And so in this case I'm going to choose the bottom left corner of my part, and I'm just going to click on that. And I'm going to drag that dimension down, and notice that it says 0. And that's going to be the starting of our dimensioning. From there, I'll go ahead and click to select the hole location, so the center of that hole. Then I like to hover over the first dimension and project that line out so all of those dimensions line up so my drawing ends up nice and neat. So there's the center of the hole. Now I need to do the start of the pocket. So I'll click to place that one, drag it down. Notice when I drag this one down that the dimensions are going to be on top of each other. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to make sure it lines up, but I'm going to offset this one to the right. About like that, looks good. I can then continue to move across my part. The next one I run into is the pocket, the end of the pocket. So I can do the same thing for that. Again, I like to make sure they line up, so I'll project that line over, make sure my dimensions are lining up, and I will click to place that dimension. Locate the hole next, same procedure, and then the overall width of the part. One thing I noticed when I put these dimensions in is we're not showing our trailing zeros, so that's something we want to do on this drawing. So under Document Settings, I'm going to go ahead and click under Dimension Units to edit that. I'll change the linear position to show 3 decimal places and select to show trailing zeros. So that takes care of all of the width dimensions for the part. We'll do the same thing for the height dimensions. So I'll go ahead and click Ordinate Dimensioning again. I'll select on the edge of my part, drag out my first dimension to locate the 0 point. Then I'll start locating all of the features. So I have a location again for the hole and the depth dimension. I have the starting of the pocket in the depth dimension. Again, I will offset that one so the dimension, so you can read the dimension. Do the same thing for the top of the part. Locate the overall depth of the feature. Again, I like to line up the ordinate dimensions so it's nice and neat, so I'll hover over that one on the bottom. Click to place it. Location for the hole, the top, and then the overall depth of the part. So there we have dimensioned all of the width and depth dimensions for this part. Next thing we will do is go ahead and dimension the height of the part. To do that, I'm just going to use a regular dimension. So I'll get the dimension tool, dimension the height of the part. I need to dimension our holes, so I'll use the hole and thread note to do that. Place that dimension. I need to dimension the arc here. So I'll go ahead and do that with my dimension tool. I notice when I do that, I'm going to need to rearrange some of these dimensions. So maybe in this case, I'll delete that one off of the part. I'll show my radius here. And then I'll move the hole note to this other hole on the other side, and that might look a little neater if I do it that way. That looks a little better to me, so I'll leave it that way. Last thing we need to do is dimension the depth of this pocket. And so one way we could do that is to create a sectional view. Because it's one depth for the pocket, I'm going to go ahead and get my dimension tool, make sure I know what the depth of the pocket is. It looks like it's 125 thousandths deep. And instead of using a dimension tool for that, I'm going to go ahead and just put a little note. I'm going to use the depth symbol here. And I'm going to say the depth of this is 125 thousandths. Last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put my 4x to show that all four of those radius are the same size. There's an example of how to use the Ordinate Dimensioning tool. And again, you'll always want to make sure you go through and clean up your dimensions, move anything around so your drawing looks nice and neat.